Welcome to the Housing Market Podcast by Keeping Current Matters. You know, this week we have got a great guest, Chelsea Peitz, on. Chelsea is a social media coach that is going to help us sort of understand, one, how to get started if you're somebody, you know, that has aspirations and wants to do more on social, but number two, how to communicate effectively on social. So this is a wonderful episode. I want you to listen, take notes, and really leverage this as you get the message out in the market. So let's hop in. So Chelsea, I'm excited to have this conversation today. You and I were talking just briefly before we started about, you know, growing up on the West Coast and being in Southern California. But I'm excited to have you on the podcast today. So thanks for joining.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm really excited. And, you know, as a Gen Xer who grew up in a small town on the West Coast, who didn't grow up with social media or the Internet of Things and had the Encyclopedia Britannica as my internet, I'm super excited to talk about all things social media today on your show. So thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, I mean, let's talk about that. Before we hop into it, though, if somebody's heard your name or maybe seen you on Instagram or Facebook or somewhere, tell folks what exactly is it that you do to help agents succeed in social?
Yes, I help real estate humans leverage social media with heart and humanity, not hustle or hack, so that they can attract their ideal audience in a way that feels really aligned and sustainable and authentic for them. In other words, how do we connect with actual human beings, especially if you're like me and you didn't grow up with social
Right.
media and you had a whole adult career before Facebook even came on the scene, and you might feel a bit
Right.
vulnerable in creating content with you in it. So I specifically help with coaching around mindset and showing up on video and how to really align the online you with the incredible offline you.
Yeah. What did you do before you did that?
I was a real estate agent. Yeah, I got licensed in 2001 BF. The BF is for before Facebook. So did business the old-fashioned way, open houses, face-to-face. A busy day was actually seeing 3 humans because I had to drive to get to
Right.
them and call them on the phone. And oh my goodness, they actually had to answer, and we had to have a conversation. So I was a realtor full-time for many years. I was licensed for 18, worked in new home sales, worked in residential resale, left around 2010 because, you know, well, 2008 happened. And I just
Yeah.
really had a difficult time sitting across from so many families that were losing their home. And I was one of those families that also lost our homes. And I couldn't do
Yeah.
anything about it. And so I decided to stay in the industry, but kind of work in a different capacity. But yeah, I was an agent for a long time.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. I appreciate you sharing that. Anybody that's been in the business as long as you have and has seen, you know, the journey from, you know, post 2008 certainly has stories to tell about that. But and I think too what you mentioned about being someone who didn't grow up with social media. Let's go ahead and say that's a good portion of people that are listening today. A good portion of people that are in the business didn't grow up with it, you know, and some feel comfortable and some feel like I would rather do anything but be on video. I'm sure that's what you see, you know, when you coach people. So I know
Absolutely.
it's valuable.
Absolutely. Yeah. There, you know, the 2 camps of people that I love to work with, honestly, and I'm uniquely positioned to serve these people because I once was these people,
Right.
are folks that honestly did not grow up with the internet or social media or talking to their phone, on a daily basis to connect with other people. In fact, when I started my social media journey, I thought it was quite strange that I was talking to strangers online. And my husband came home from work one
Right.
night and I was excitedly telling him about my friend Shannon and how she got this new job. And he's like, "Oh, that's awesome." And he said, "Who is Shannon?" I said, "Oh, she's my Snapchat friend." And he just looked at me and just said, "Honey, those aren't real people. You don't even know those
That's funny.
people." So it really started
Yeah.
my whole journey on figuring out the science of what I call the screen to screen relationship and how our brains
Yeah.
function in a world of technology and specifically through screens, which honestly wasn't such a big keynote sell until 2020. And then
Yeah,
a lot
right.
more people
Right.
started reaching out and asking, like, how can we build trust through technology if we're going to be stuck on screens for the next foreseeable future?
Right. And I think that that journey, it was, it was sort of nice to have prior to 2020, and then the world shut down and we all got on Zoom and could broadcast ourselves, whether it be on Instagram or Facebook or whatever the platform was. And now today, I mean, I'd be interested in your take, but if you're not, you're behind, right? I mean, what would be your perspective on somebody that's like, you know what, I'm not there right now?
Mhm. I was just asked this the other day, and for anyone who's listening to this show, obviously they are most likely in real estate. And when you're in real estate, you are the brand. You are a personal brand. Your brand is not a house, it
Right.
is not a logo, it is not your brokerage. It truly is you because you are building trust with someone from afar. And the way that we work, all of us as humans, we Google things, we go to Yelp, we look at reviews on Amazon to decide, well, these are the exact same price. And do I get the one that's 5 stars or the one that's 4.5? So we're using data and scanning data in less than a second to determine two things, which is kind of wild. Okay. We're looking to determine, one, are you trustworthy? And two, are you competent? And that sounds bizarre to look through someone's Instagram
Right.
feed in a second and be like, oh, this person's trustworthy and competent. But here's an example. Maybe I don't watch any of your content, but maybe I see that you've made 40 videos about being a real estate expert in your space. And I can easily scan and see your face in them. So I've verified you are who you say you are, that you are a trustworthy human. I know that sounds strange. And that you likely are competent because you are talking about those things. And so now I have checked that final box that my brain needs to then reach out to you. So while social media may not be the first place that many of us start, it's often the final box to check before we reach out to someone. And so if you are a personal brand in 2024 and you are not in your content, people are unable to connect with you as the human being that you are, that people are able to watch your content and have a sense of feeling like they already know you. Yes, you can still be
Right.
successful, but it is going to be accelerated exponentially if you are able to create content and put it in a forum like Instagram or Facebook or YouTube where people can consume on their own time and create that connection, because our brain actually has no idea if I'm looking at your face on a screen or if I'm looking at your face in the same room with me. All the same neurons fire.
Right.
So it's pretty amazing that scientifically we can actually still connect with someone through a device and a screen.
Yeah, that's amazing. So let's talk about that because Keeping Current Matters. I've always thought about to be the knowledge broker, you have to have the knowledge,
Mhm.
right? You have to have an understanding. You have to understand what's going on nationally and locally. But then if you don't share that knowledge, it's useless. So what do you say to the person right now that says, "Okay, I'm on that journey of gathering information, but I haven't perfected the sharing of that." Because I
Mhm.
think there are a lot of people that are in that. They're like, I tried, I didn't like it, or I don't like to see myself on video, or whatever the response is.
Yes. So that is a big portion of what I focus on because we are human beings, and human beings, by and large, the majority of us don't like watching ourselves back on camera. We don't like how our voice sounds. And there is tons of scientific evidence that says we shouldn't, because here's the thing, we're
Yeah.
used to looking at ourselves in a mirror, right? So we're getting ready in the morning. We're used to seeing ourselves in the mirror. We live in our bodies every day, so we are not aware of it. Then we get on a video and we want to be prepared because we want to show up as a credible, respected, expert focused authority. So what do? The same thing we've done our entire lives, that throughout school, we prepare, we memorize, we get our script out. And then what happens is we record this video and maybe you hit all of your script, but your body's not moving. And your brain is so focused on getting all of the words right that all the warmth cues are sucked out of your face. And
Right.
you're not smiling and
Right.
your hands aren't moving and you're in this tiny little box and you're like, oh, that's me. But it doesn't feel
Right.
like me. And then what we think is, it's me. It's me. But what really is happening is those little subtle things that we are doing in attempts to prepare actually make us feel misaligned. And then we get the cringe or the ick factor, right? So there's a lot of limiting beliefs also around two major areas that I want to talk about. One is you talked about knowledge and building that expertise, and your content is phenomenal for that. Some people, and I know this because are terrified to become the expert. They want to make thought leadership
Yeah.
content. But let's be honest, in today's world where anyone can leave you a comment, what if I give bad advice? What if somebody
Right.
disagrees with me
Right.
and I'm terrified to be the expert? To that, I'm going to say there's one really easy solution. You don't have to be prescriptive. You don't have to say you should do X or every person buying a home needs to do or must do Y. You could say that. But what I always do is come from my own lived experiences. So instead of me saying,
Sure.
here's how everyone should make video content, if you're a real estate agent, you're doing it wrong unless you do it like this. I say, here's how I make my video content and why. So coming from that lived
Right.
experience of maybe a client story or when you were an agent in 2008, this was how the market was and how you see it compared to today. So we need your perspective. That's a key word. We need to hear your perspective because we follow people and trust people that have an opinion. People don't follow me usually that are wanting to hack their way through social media. Do I know all of the hacks? I do. But I know long term, that's not a strategy that is going to work for me. So I am a big believer in giving people sustainable, if you want to post once a week, great. You don't have to post every day. So I have a perspective, I have an opinion. So we need to
Right.
hear that. But those limiting beliefs around, I don't like how I look or I don't like how I sound. I don't want to be the expert. I'm afraid that I'll give it bad advice. Another one that's very common is, listen, that's great. I get it. Technology is here to stay, but I'm a private person. The question that you need to answer is,
Right.
what would you do in real life? Literally, what would you do in real
Right.
life? Are you going to hide behind a wall when somebody talks to you because you can't speak to them face to face? No. Are you going to say, well, I keep compartmentalized real estate over here and me as the human over here? No, you don't. Because when I meet you at a conference,
Right.
you make small talk. Oh, where are you from? Oh, okay, yeah, Palm Springs. Oh, okay, what's the weather like? So we can talk about personal human content without being private. But a lot of these
Right.
limiting beliefs around social media and content and technology, the reason that we are frustrated with it and not getting results is because we are showing up in ways digitally that we would never, ever show up in the physical world. And that's why we're frustrated with it, not getting the results.
Yeah, I think there's so many points there that you just made. I want to go back and say one thing because I think the idea of putting something out in the world socially and certainly from an expert, sort of opinion of the business can be, fear inducing because nobody wants to put something out there and not be seen as that, right? And be perceived as a fraud. The one thing I try to remind people, and certainly at Keeping Current Matters, we want to advocate for this, is there's a difference between an expert, piece of content or expert advice versus perfect advice. Nobody can give you perfect advice on anything, but you can, for that day and that time, give your fact-based opinion of prices, of mortgage rates, or whatever the case is, what's selling in your market. But I hear that. But I'm interested to go back to a point that you made, because I think everybody that's recorded any video has fallen prey to what you said. I'm so prepared. I've got everything written here. I'm ready to go. I'm locked in. And I'm like, all right, let's go. And I'm like, I hate it.
Yeah.
How do you get over that? How do you bust through that wall? Because that can seem insurmountable. If you almost self-defeating.
Yeah. And as somebody who loves to be prepared, as somebody who's a rule follower, somebody who always got my assignments done early because the thought of procrastinating
Yeah.
and being late was awful. I mean, if anybody listening relates to that, the idea of not over preparing for me sounds absolutely terrifying. And so I'm just going to give you my exact strategy of how I do this, but I'm going to also weave in some tips that anyone can do that are going to help you get a little bit more aligned with your authentic self in videos. Part of it is obviously exposure therapy. Part of it is continuing to do it and getting comfortable. And this is
Right.
coming from somebody who didn't watch my videos for 5 years. I don't recommend that. But I'm just letting you know I'm very
I hear you.
self-aware and I did what I needed to do at the time to get through it. So, what's important to know is that, again, when we're memorizing, when we're reading, we are not speaking in the same way that we would speak to a friend, right? We don't even write the way that we talk. So, what I do is when I'm doing something educational, which the bulk of my content is, I like to script out line by line. And a lot of people are like, really? Because it seems like you're just talking and you're not even scripted. I'm like, I worked really hard on that, but I like to get
Yeah.
all my thoughts out so that I can organize it. Then what I do is before I record anything, I say it out loud. And 100% of the time, there's always something that I realize, wait, I wouldn't say that. This doesn't sound like me. I change it up a
Right.
little bit so it sounds exactly like I would say it. I say it a couple of times in a different way, and I'm like, I like this way better. Then I've got my script. With the beauty of what we have now in Instagram Reels, in TikToks, pretty much anything other than maybe going to a studio with a videographer, and even then it still can be done. They just have to edit. What I recommend is not memorizing and not reading and literally recording one sentence or one thought at a time. So I can bullet point, and because you can glance down, you're like, okay, here's the essence of the first sentence I want to say. And you don't have to memorize
Right.
it. And then sometimes what I do is I'll repeat the sentence 3 times. And maybe the third one is the take that I like. But the beauty of what we have in our editing features, and I don't do a lot of editing because I'm also self-aware and I know that I could spend 12 hours happily editing a 7-second video, and that's not the best use of my time. So I keep it
Right.
simple, but you can pause. It's like you can record and pause. You can record and pause, and it saves your place. You don't have to re-record everything. And how amazing is it that I don't have to memorize everything that I'm going to say, because my brain is going to be on bullet point number 3, but my mouth and my face are going to be on the intro, and I'm going to lose my eye
Right.
contact. I'm going to lose my connection. I'm not going to be using my hands like I normally do. And it's just going to feel not like me. And so that's the way I do it. I record in clips. I do script everything out. I read it out loud first to make sure that it sounds like conversational. And then I record one sentence at a time, and that's it.
Yeah. I think the word you used was exposure therapy
Mhm.
on the front end of that.
Yes.
I've never heard that before.
Yeah.
I think I've always thought about that in the only way to bust through that is to do it.
Mhm. And
Is
there
to hope to look back a year down the road and say, can you believe what I looked like or what I sounded like in the first one?
Exactly. But that, even though we know that logically, like anything else in life, if I'm going to learn how to drive, I'm going to have to drive. If I'm going to learn how to speak on stages,
Sure.
I'm going to have to do it. Right.
Right.
But even
Yeah.
that, we know it logically, it really gets into our head. So I'd like to offer a couple of tips for those who are like, no, I get it. I understand exposure therapy. Like I've got to do it, but I
Right.
still
Right.
can't bring myself to do it. I have a couple ways you can ease into this really easily. So
Okay.
the first thing that I always tell people to do is, go through their people that they're connected with on, say, Instagram. Okay, maybe there's like 3 or 4 or 5 people that they really enjoy, they know in real life. Maybe they're clients, maybe they're friends, and to start sending them a very short, unscripted video in a DM. And the reason I like it to be someone like, and trust is because when you know that person, you don't have to think about what to say. A lot of the reason that we don't know what to say is because we don't have a clarity in who we're talking to. And if you can send something positive like a happy birthday, a thank you for being there for me, just wanted to check in on you and say, hope you have a great weekend. You don't need to memorize that script because that's a human way to talk to someone. And you're also doing
So give
something.
somebody an example
Yeah.
of that right now. Like if you were going
Okay.
to send one, you'd go,
I
hey,
would
this is
say, let's
Chelsea. I'm
pretend
just
I'm going
checking
to
in and
send
see
it
what
to you. Now, I mean,
Okay.
we just met, but like, let's pretend that like we've done a lot of podcasts together. And so I would
Okay.
just pull out my phone, I'd open it up to Instagram, and I would start a message to you. And you can actually do text, which we all know. That's what we usually do is we send
Right.
text in the DMs, but you can record a voice note, you can record a video. And what I would do is maybe after this podcast, I'm going to go walk my dog. And so I'm going to do something while I'm doing something else. And let me tell you, as weird as it sounds, friends, walking and talking will help you get more comfortable on camera because your brain can only focus on one thing at a time, and it's going to focus on you not falling down. So you're going to feel more like you're relaxed. So I'm just going to hold my phone up and I'm going to be walking my dog and I'm going to hit that camera and I'm going to say, David, thank you so much for having me on the show. It was so fun today. I hope you have a great weekend. That's it, right? Didn't have to think about what I was going to say. I didn't have to think about my script. And guess what? I was smiling. Because you can't say nice things to people without smiling. I dare you to say thank you, congratulations, or happy birthday and not smile, right? So then what happens is you get into this habit of communicating through the camera. And since you're going to watch it probably, or you're going to at least see a little bit of it, you're going to notice that, wow, maybe that wasn't like the best lighting or whatever it was, but it sounded like me. The tone was
But
me.
it communicated.
Yeah.
Right. It communicated the care.
Yeah.
Right.
And then you get this dopamine hit because you did something nice for someone. And then you get the message, you open up that message, and you get a hit of dopamine. And not only that, you're building that skill and that habit, but because I sent it to you in a direct message, the algorithm wakes up and it's like, hey guys, wait a minute. Chelsea just sent a message to David and he opened it and responded. We better reshuffle both of their feeds and make sure that the next time David posts, Chelsea sees it high up in the feed because they're talking to each other. They must want to see more of each other. So now you're creating this habit of creating short little videos with no script. It makes you feel good because you're making somebody else feel good. It's training your algorithm. And if you did that 2 or 3 times, let's say Monday through Friday, while you're walking the dog or before you go into your office and you're sitting in your parked car, little tiny videos like that. And that's how I started. That's how I got comfortable. I would do daily Instagram stories. Well, it was Snapchat back then. But exposure therapy of doing it and accidentally found out that when I started talking about something that was totally mundane and not about marketing, that's when people started engaging. So that little one-to-one communication in the DMs is totally free. You don't have to have someone's text or phone number or email.
Yeah.
And when we think about,
and you don't have to feel like you're putting yourself out there to the world.
It's private. Right? It's one, right? Nobody else sees it. And then from there, I'd go to stories because, again, that's a little bit more of a safer environment where you have just people that follow you versus posting a video to the world that could go to strangers as well. So I kind of stair-step it in a little bit, but I wish I would have done that. Because I just would sweat and white knuckle it and just do video after video after video. Had I had used some of those things, it probably would have helped me feel a little bit more comfortable to make some videos where I felt a little bit more like me and was maybe willing to try a few lines without memorizing them.
Well, I think it's such a good point because it's a way to start in a safe way to put your, authentic self out, if that's the right word. Because I was listening to a reel the other day, and I can't remember the numbers, but they were talking about how much of communication is not just the words you use, but it's the tone, it's the body language, and who cares if the lighting's right while you're walking the dog? People are like, all right, that was real.
Mm-hmm.
And it communicates that. So I appreciate you sharing that. I think anybody listening could go, okay, that's something I could do. If I'm like, hey, I hate myself on video or I hate being on video, whatever that is, I can do that. I can make a video for a friend and send it to them.
Most real estate agents know what's happening. Good agents understand what's happening. But great agents, they can explain what's happening. At Keeping Current Matters, we help real estate agents become experts. With market insights and marketing tools, you'll not only stand out, you'll thrive in any market. Keeping Current Matters. Be the expert.
So that was the first tip. What's the next one?
I am a big believer that stories on Instagram are going to be the number one way you're going to convert more business. And I know a
Okay.
lot about the science and psychology behind it. I wrote a whole book about it. And this is the reason why stories, specifically that format over anything else, is going to get you more conversions. The first thing is 9 times out of 10, it's probably going to show your face. So you're just talking to your community. But that's not necessarily the only thing, right? That is important because we have neural imprints on people's faces. As I start to see someone's face again and again, this really wild thing happens where I start to create a neural pattern just for your face, which is kind of incredible. Then you've got eye contact happening where how amazing is it that I can create a 30-second video and have eye contact with other human beings while I'm sleeping? All of this is totally subconscious, by the way, right? We don't know that this is happening, but it's accelerating trust. Now, here's the really important part for stories. It's two things. One, it's the unedited nature. What happens when we see someone in their kitchen talking about, oh, I just got this new brand of ice cream, I'm going to say, oh, yeah, maybe I'm going to try that. That's why they started influencer campaigns. And that's why people are tired of influencer campaigns, because they know they're getting paid. We want to see real
Right.
people talking about real things. And because I'm seeing you in what I call your sacred spaces, spaces that I don't get to go to, your living room, your office, maybe your wherever you're at, and you get to come on my vacation if I so choose. I feel like it's real. I feel like it's actually authentic. And so I have that opportunity to start building more trust. The next piece of stories that scientifically and psychologically connects people faster is that it's real-time shared experiences. This you and I are having right now is a real-time shared experience. We're actually here live with each other. But stories is the next best thing because it's almost like I can watch what someone is doing, but instead of just watching a reality TV show, I can actually talk to you while your episode is airing and you can talk back. And I might say something like, what do you
Right.
think I should do? Should we go here or should we go there? And people can say, oh my gosh, we loved this place. We highly recommend it, right? I feel like I am co-creating or along for the ride in your journey. And so that's very, very connecting. It's also a private environment where nobody sees our conversations. And because you're showing me an unedited, authentic version of you, we're more likely to have more in-depth conversations. And when I say in-depth, it could be about the most mundane things. My dogs are often points of
Right.
conversation that are happening. But here's what people don't realize is they say, yeah, I get it. I think I could buy into that. Like I get the science, but like I don't really see how sharing what I had for lunch is going to help me get more luxury real estate clients. And to that, I say, I'll prove it to you in a scientific way. Now, I'd use
All
this
right.
like the show me lunch. It could be your gym selfie, whatever. Why would I show things that are just boring everyday parts of my life? Who cares? Because what happens on social, especially when we don't know someone, is we need what I call no barrier or low barrier points of entry to conversation because you want people to talk to you. I don't know the person who's silently consuming and connecting. I don't know that they're lurking with love, but I'd like for them to talk to me. Well, there's high barrier and low barrier. When I talk about my coaching, that's high barrier. When I talk about marketing, that's high barrier. They may not know the questions to ask. I'm still going to talk about it, but I'm also going to talk about things that have literally nothing to do with me being a speaker, an author, and a coach. Why? Because those are the things that make people feel like, oh my gosh, I totally relate to this, and it's safe for me to have an opinion or say I relate to this because I have a dog and she has a dog. And now I have this no stress opportunity to talk to you. And probably you're a stranger, or maybe I haven't even met you in the physical world. So then the more I talk to you, the more I already feel like we've started a conversation. The hardest thing is to start. It's like when you're in a room at a conference and someone says, does anyone have any questions? Nobody wants to be the first
Right.
hand that goes up. But then when somebody asks a question, more people ask the questions. So that mundane or boring content that literally has nothing to do with real estate or the market or stats is 100% what's going to allow people and invite them into a conversation so that 3 months from now, when they are seeing you make content again about the market, they've already had conversations with you. Now they're going to ask you a question about the market because they've already had 17 other questions or conversations with you that had nothing to do with it, and it was safe. So it's the safety, the experience, and that's why low barrier entry of content, the boring mundane, is critical to actually getting more clients.
Yeah, I hear that. How important in that analogy of low barrier conversations that there's interaction? Are you starting to build that even if there's not interaction?
Here's what I would say. 3 things about engagement. Number 1, if you want to get great engagement, you better be a great engager. So that's first and foremost. You need to be out there supporting other people's content, sharing their content, saying, hey, I like this. This was great. You need to be commenting. You need to be, engaging in the DMs, and they will reciprocate. So number 1, you've got to proactively engage if you want to get more engagement. Number 2 is that you could be asking questions and or specifically in stories using what are called engagement stickers, the polls, the question sticker, because anytime somebody is watching content, remember, we're lazy. And so we don't want to do a lot of work. And if you just give us something easy to tap, we're more likely to engage, and that also impacts the algorithm. So maybe I had 5 people participate in my poll. Well, guess what? Those 5 people are going to start seeing my story at the beginning of the story lineup. We love that. So asking for the engagement is important, being a good engager. And the last thing that I want to share that I haven't heard anybody else talk about but me is that we have to look at the product psychology of these platforms. They've changed a ton since Facebook 15 years ago. Like in the old days of Facebook, we never would have accepted a friend request from somebody we didn't actually know in real life. Like that would be weird, right? I'd be like, who is this weird person that I don't even know that's sending me a friend request? That is not the case anymore. Like on Instagram, we're like, I don't know who these people are that are following me, and I'm commenting on their stuff and I don't even know them. So we've come a long way, and they have trained us, I think, some of the engagement out of us. You open it, it's like TV. It just throws you more videos. You're just scrolling. I don't even know these people. And if you don't know the people because they're pushing content in front of you from people you don't follow, how do you interact with somebody you've never seen before? You're probably not starting a conversation. You probably need 5, 10, 15 experiences with their content before you're even willing to maybe drop a comment. So I don't know that engagement has drastically decreased. More so, I think of it as, has it changed? Because these platforms are training it out of us. And so the takeaway from that is know this, that your next future client is silently connecting while they're consuming and never leaving you a trackable metric. And even if they are leaving you trackable metrics, you cannot measure an aha moment. You cannot measure a perspective shift. You cannot measure when somebody says, that was the best explanation of the market that I have heard in 6 months. You can't measure that. So there's so many things that we get wrapped up in, like numbers and views and measurements and, oh my gosh, my engagement and my comments are down. People are still seeing you because, in the 70s and 80s, we had to, use billboards. Well, those are kind of hard to measure. But they still worked, right? So it's all in the mindset of how you're looking at it. But yeah, engagement has changed, and in order to get engagement, you need to first be a really good engager.
Well, I think it's a great point to say, hey, it takes time for somebody to want to then engage. What do you think, by your estimation, just this may be an unfair question to ask you, what percentage of agents are really functional and good in this area?
I'm immersed in the world. So I have so many incredible real estate humans that I follow that are using social media and getting almost 100% of their business or if not 100%, a very vast majority of their business through social media.
Right.
So, am I in a world where it's probably not a good scientific basis because, those are the people in my community? Probably
Sure, I
yes.
hear you.
But
Yeah.
I think that
Yeah.
there is a lot of people that are really doing incredible things on social media. And I will tell you, for those people who are listening and they're like, yep, I know it. This was going to be a show about getting on social media. Keep in mind, social media is merely a vehicle. It's not a destination. And 25 years ago, when I walked into my brokerage, my broker asked me the same question every day. And the question was, how many people did you talk to? Literally nothing
Right.
has changed. Fast forward 2.5
Right.
decades later. Now, though, I have the opportunity to talk to people at scale. And not only talk to people at scale, I have the ability, if I so choose, to post something, to share a message at scale. Even if I never posted anything ever in my feed, I can
Right.
still use social media as a very sophisticated, savvy, free CRM, email/text, where I can connect with other humans. Like, let me just imagine I never even post anything, but I lovingly lurk. And I see that you are celebrating a birthday, David, okay? Maybe because you're my past client and I'm able to see that, maybe I send you something like an awesome gift that shows up on your doorstep. And they're like, wow, like, how did you even know? That's so kind that you even remembered.
Right.
I didn't probably remember,
Right.
but I saw it here. So there's other ways you can leverage social media other than making reels and content all day to still create incredible experiences and relationships with real human beings on the other
Well,
side.
I think it's so important right now because everybody is trying to figure out, how do I become known as the expert in my
Right.
market? How do I become the educator? How do I convey value? Given everything with the NAR settlement and the way the business is
Yeah.
sort of changing relative to that. And this is a way. And the reason I asked that question, and I said it's maybe an unfair question, is that it's a percentage of agents. It's not the majority. It's a percentage of folks that are saying, hey, I want to broadcast myself. I want to put my message out there. I want to engage on it. And I think it's something right now that if you have the information and you are stepping into that, it's a way to build your brand. It's a way to build your expertise in the market.
Yeah, and I think your company is uniquely positioned to help serve one of the biggest challenges that I hear and have heard for years, which is why I titled my second book, What to Post. The number one question
Yeah.
is, what the heck do I say? What do I post? How do I do this?
Right.
And so, you're taking out half of the biggest challenge, if not more. And
Right.
so if you look at it in terms of, we've got your resources, and I don't necessarily have to use it even for content. I can use it as like a CRM 2.0 because I love my email list. I'm focused on doubling my email list this year. It has nothing to do with social media because I know that email and nurturing is effective. But what's really interesting is when I send out that email to people, I have no idea who's reading it. I have no idea who's seeing it unless they respond. I have no idea what they're doing in their lives while they're reading it. When I go to social media, I can pop into their story and see that maybe their kiddo is graduating from 5th grade this week. And I can just simply say, oh my gosh, I can't believe it went by so fast, or just a quick note.
Right.
So it's like a
Right.
CRM where I can actually see what's happening in people's lives and take it an extra step. So you definitely don't have to make Instagram reels to still use social media in a way that can
Right.
connect you with other people.
It's a good point. I was thinking as you were saying that, I'm like, gosh, I would love for Chelsea to take a piece of content, of KCM content, and say, hey, here's how you'd produce something on it. Because there's so many things that we do that we put out into the world that people take and make their own.
That's the
And
key.
then, I see it on social or something. I'm like, that's really cool, that people are able to do that. So we'll have to talk about that. I'd love to have you do
Yeah,
that and just
absolutely.
show folks, this is how you get great engagement. This is how you would,
Mhm.
engage people relative to,
Yeah.
things that are happening
I'll
in the
just give
market.
a really quick example of how I do that, because
Okay.
like you and everyone listening, we wanna show our work. We wanna say, where are you getting this
Sure.
information, right? And so I get my information directly from Instagram, from their blogs, once in a while from some other reputable blogs that have access to Instagram, and also Instagram's CEO's account. So what do? I come with the receipts. I'm going to screenshot it. I have screen recordings. I said, this is the article. Same thing
Right.
with what people would be doing. But here's the difference. Here's the part where that perspective comes in. Number one, you can summarize and make things easier to understand. So making it your own, making it original means I'm not just going to read word for word that blog post that Instagram made. I'm going to reference the blog post. I might have it behind me on a green screen. I might be showing one particular picture. And then I'm going to tell you what it means in plain English. Or then I'm going to say, what's really interesting is because I remember in 2008, it was more like this. And fast forward to 2024, now we're here. That's perspective. That's context. So that's how you take data and information and make it your own. I say always come with the
Right.
receipts, right? Showcase that. It's also a really great way to go back and forth between like a green screen and just you talking, because that also is a little bit of a way to kind of keep our brains engaged versus just, a strict talking head not moving at all. So a little bit of editing goes into that. But yeah,
Right.
absolutely, making something summarized, giving an analogy, helping someone understand it in plain English, and also giving your perspective or your 2 cents. Not everybody wants to do that, but that would be like,
Sure.
one of the bullet points that you could
That's
do.
Right. No, I hear you on that. Listen, there's so much. I'm so grateful for your coaching and advice on this podcast, because this is a topic that so many people get confused on. You said it just a minute ago. People know they need to be doing it. They're not sure what to record or what to post or what to do. So let's wrap this way. I want you to take just a minute. If somebody's listening and they say, I want to connect with Chelsea to grow my social, to get better in this area, whatever it is, how do they do that?
Yeah, it's really easy. You're going to find either my website or my Instagram, and it's exactly the same. It's my first and last name. So it's just Chelsea Peitz, and it's spelled Peitz. And I have a whole bunch of free stuff on there because I remember how frustrated I was when I was teaching myself social media because they didn't have class, they didn't have coaches. I just had to figure it out.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to pay it forward. And I have so much free stuff and guides and content guides that literally break it down and is like, this is why this headline works. This is an idea that you could use. And so you can just have it all. It's all free. It's on my website. It's the same stuff that's on my Instagram and my link in bio. So I'd love to hear from you. If you listen to the podcast, send me a message so that I can personally say hello and thank you. I'd love to do that.
That's awesome. Well, thank you for sharing that. My encouragement to anybody listening would be to go and follow Chelsea. Go understand how you can connect better with your audience. And Chelsea, I know everybody listening, everybody here today is better off because of what you shared. So thank you.
Thanks for having me.
That was a wonderful conversation with Chelsea. I thoroughly enjoyed having her on, and I want to have her back on and talk about how do you engage on social, one-to-one, one-to-many, and really set up the opportunity to have more conversations. Our goal with this podcast is to invite you into the conversations we're having here at Keeping Current Matters to achieve the mission where I always say we believe every family should feel confident when buying and selling a home. As we do the podcast, one of the things I want to ask you to do is if there are questions that you want us to answer on the podcast or things that you're thinking about us, let us know. There's a form in the show notes where you can go in and add your questions in, add your thoughts in about what you'd love to see on the podcast. If you'll do that, we will address those questions and we will answer those on future podcasts. So as always, thanks for joining. How's the market? We'll see you back next week.